Welcome back to the channel, guys. I'm Sheldon, and this is Behind the Enthusiast. Today, we're going to be talking about why I don't own a Buell XB9. So, let's get into it. So, first things first, I know a lot of you guys are probably going to be ready at the keyboard, ready to, curse me out for something and tell me what I don't know about something, because a lot of you guys are really, really passionate about your Buells, and the other video did get a lot of hate in it. However, I wanted to kind of readdress the issue as to why I don't own what I would prefer to own from Buell, which is the XB9SX. This is the city model, preferably in blue, just like the thumbnail photo. However, I haven't seen a whole lot of those available, and that is why the first reason as to why I don't own one of these really nice motorcycles is because they are super, super rare. Now, obviously, I go on to Kijiji from time to time to look at what's available. I check out the pricing, I look at the market, and basically there's a lot of reasons as to why I don't own one of these bikes. Now, I do have 5 reasons. The first one, obviously, if you can't find them, you can't buy them. Now, number 2 is they are super overpriced. Now, when I first started working at the Harley-Davidson dealership, I think Buells were somewhat reasonably priced. However, 5 years later, the prices have seemed to have skyrocketed, with COVID and the pandemic. Pricing in the used market has really gone up as well. And so it's not just that these motorcycles are rare. People think that because they're rare, they overvalue them. And personally, if something is super rare, it does not make it more valuable. It really depends on the model, whether we're talking about motorcycles or cars or whatever. Just because something's super rare doesn't necessarily mean the value should go through the roof. And in this case, obviously, finding an XB9, when they're rare, overpriced, sometimes they're not in the greatest condition. So reason number 3 for me to not have one of these bikes right now is that they're not in the greatest condition. People don't maintain them. People want to swap out components. They want to change the front end. They want to change the handlebars. They want to do this and that. So they're not original. Now, obviously, that's another reason why I don't own one of these things is when I'm looking on Kijiji, I actually saw an XB9. I believe it was in red, and the thing had curb rash on the rims, and it was just in horrible shape. There was no passenger foot pegs on it. The mounts, I think, were gone as well. And let's be honest, it's not a big deal if someone modifies one of these motorcycles. However, if it's not tastefully done and you're taking something off the bike, like passenger pegs, now I can't ride around with a passenger, and, well, that's never a good thing, because if I want to go with my partner out on the bike, I can't do it. So that's one of the things that I have to take into consideration is I don't want a bike that is strictly for solo riding. I mean, if I really wanted one of those, I would go and get one. But riding a motorcycle is meant to be enjoyed with your partner. And if my partner doesn't know how to ride a motorcycle, for example, then how is she supposed to go with me, right? So there's a few reasons there. Obviously, if the bikes are not in the greatest condition or you don't think they've been maintained very well, maybe someone's selling an XB9 with a blown motor in it. Well, that is not going to happen. I am not going to do that sort of thing. I'm not going to buy it and then try to fix it like that, especially when, reason number 4, parts are obsolete. Now, do I know all the obsolete parts? Absolutely not. However, working at the dealership for 5 years now has really given me a lot of experience. There's a lot of guys coming in with their own Buells, and yes, a lot of the main components for maintenance, oil, filters, brake pads, all of that stuff is readily available. Tires, obviously, you can get tires. That's not a big deal. However, it is those really difficult components to find, such as brake rotors. Now, keep in mind, I did talk about this in my other video, the front rotors, and I believe the rear rotors as well. those have been discontinued. They were discontinued a while ago. And so convenience-wise, obviously, if I walk into the dealership where I work and I say, oh, something's going wrong with my Buell, and I look it up on the computer and I can't find it, that is going to piss me off. I don't want a motorcycle that can't be easily repaired. Obviously, if there's something like, I don't know, maybe the bike falls over in the parking lot for some reason, right? The mirrors get damaged or whatever, and I can't replace them? Well, if I can't get OEM parts easily, readily available, it is going to deter me from buying one of these bikes. Now, obviously, for some of you, you might not care too much about these little things here and there, but for me, if I'm going to own a motorcycle, there has to be a lot of things, going for it, right? Obviously, the age of the bike is going to determine whether or not I'm going to get parts, because the supply chain is going to be basically non-existent. And of course, this is going to play a role in location, depending on where you guys live. I live in Canada. Obviously, from country to country, or province to province for that matter, some people might see more, abundance in certain areas compared to where I am. And so that is something that I really have to take into consideration when looking for an XB9, if I'm actually able to find one. And the fifth and final reason as to why I can't really justify buying one of these motorcycles at the moment is I don't really need it. I don't really have room for it. I have a lot of bikes right now, as you guys know. I have several motorcycles to choose from, and there's some that I haven't even introduced on the channel yet. So for me to actually go out and get one of these things, it has to be a really, really good deal. Now, color-wise, obviously, my favorite color is blue. That's not that big of a deal, right? If it's black, or if it's I believe there's yellow and orange as well, and the red. So depending on the year, I think there's about 4 colors available. Now, obviously, I'm just kind of going off of what I remember. Now, there are options. Maybe you get an XB12. However, because of the size of the motor, obviously insurance reasons, that's going to be a reason why I wouldn't do that. So, yes, I am occasionally hunting around for an XB9. Again, it doesn't matter what color, but because they're rare, it's very difficult to find them. Because they're overpriced, I look at the prices on Kijiji and I think, there's no way I'm paying that for such an old bike. I might as well go get an Iron 883 for that price and pay for something that's, 15 years old or whatever. I mean, there's just no justification in it. But I have seen some Buells going for $8,000, $10,000, and they're not worth it. Now, some of you may disagree. There's a comment section down below, so this is the perfect time for you guys to argue your point, whether or not you think these are rare, overpriced, poor condition. Obviously, I don't think any of us are really going to disagree on that one. I mean, if the thing's in poor condition, that's really not a selling point. Now, obviously, the obsolete components, I know a lot of you may not feel that it's too inconvenient to have to search for parts online. However, for me, it's all about convenience, right? Car, you can hop in your car, turn the key, and go, right? Motorcycle, there's a little bit more involved, right? You got to put on protective gear and whatnot. However, when your motorcycle is down and it's the summertime, I want convenience. And I find it hard to believe that any of you would disagree with me on this point. You want parts readily available so that downtime is minimized. And depending on where you live, obviously, if your riding season is very, very short, you don't want to have your motorcycle sitting in the garage on hoist, waiting for components that have to come in from, the Netherlands or something, and you're living in North America. Price for those things is going to be an issue as well, shipping, all that stuff. So keep all those things in mind when you guys are leaving comments down below, which I invite you guys to leave lots and lots of comments as to why you own a Buell or why you don't own a Buell, and just have a pretty in-depth conversation about this, because obviously, I do love the XB9. It is probably my favorite bike out of all the Buells. And again, I have ridden the 1125 CR. Now, that experience didn't go all that well. I think I mentioned it previously. There were some issues with the bike, and it wasn't a very good test ride. But XB9, obviously, they're more similar to the Sportster engines, so it's a little bit easier for me to get components for those bikes for that reason, and many other reasons as well. So at the end of the day, though, those are my 5 reasons for not owning a Buell right now. And it's not necessarily why I don't want to own one, it's more like why I can't own one. So obviously, if the right deal, the right opportunity comes up, and again, regardless of color, really, because I can always paint the thing, if the opportunity does, come up, there is a pretty good chance I will own an XB9. However, with them being so rare as it is, and let's say maybe people who are buying them right now are collecting them for some reason, I'm not going to see any for sale. And if for some reason people are parting them out to save other bikes, well, there's going to become less and less bikes available for sale as well for that reason. So that is it. I want to know what you guys think. So leave some comments down below. Smash that like button so I know that it's working. And of course, subscribe so you guys don't miss out on future content on the channel. And I will catch you guys in the next one.